Wanna play?
Here's Johnny!
I need a bigger boat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We have such sights to show you.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Wanna Play. My name is James McKenna, and today's a pretty historic video because for the first time ever, I'm collabing with two people, not just one. You've seen both of them in the past before. It's the same two people who I always collab with. That's This Is My Design and Gibby the Great. And what we're doing today is we're counting down, in our opinions, our top 10 best horror sequels of all time. Now there are certain rules. The main rule here is that it can only be one per franchise. So like, you can't have Halloween 2018, Halloween 4, Halloween H2O. Like, they can't just all fill up a list on one franchise. I guess that's the one and only rule. But yeah, this video is probably going to be pretty long. So yeah, why don't you stick all the way through. You'll see all of our opinions. There's probably going to be a lot of overlapping opinions. There's probably going to be a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. But who knows? I'm recording this before I know both of their lists, so this is going to be as much of a surprise to me as it is to you. So that's going to be pretty fun. So, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Before we start this top 10 list off, of course, we're going to be doing our honorable mentions. And my honorable mentions are going to be I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I think I prefer it to the original. It's just a fun movie. The Rage Carrie 2. I don't prefer it to the original, but it's just such a fun and underrated movie, just like I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Hellraiser Inferno, yet another underrated movie. It's the 5th Hellraiser movie in the franchise, and the best one other than the original. The Collection, one that I prefer to The Collector, which is the original, and Psycho 4, The Beginning, the best in the franchise other than the first. People say it's Psycho 2, people say it's Psycho 3, but I'm somebody who prefers the 4th one.
And for my honorable mentions, I'm going to be giving out a lot of 3s. Leprechaun 3, Puppet Master 3, Paranormal Activity 3, Bride of Frankenstein, Annabelle Creation, which upon making was on my list, and then upon further remembering, it's actually a prequel, not a sequel. Technically, it still comes after the first one, but it is a prequel, so I took it off the list and threw it in the honorable mentions. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And also the greatest, in my opinion, not my personal favorite, but it's not really horror, but kind of is, in my opinion, the greatest sequel and probably most perfect movie ever made, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So those are my honorable mentions, and thank you guys so much for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Coming in my honorable mentions is Children of the Corn 3. Really fun to watch. And Jaws 2. Really fun to watch. Kind of forgettable. And
So coming in at number 10 is going to be one that me and Mike just talked about in our last collab video. That is Hatchet 3. Hatchet 3 is just such a fun ride with so many recognizable faces spread throughout. It's got the best incarnation of Mary Beth, the best kill scenes from Victor Crowley. Definitely the funniest. It had me laughing out loud multiple times. Like, it's a wicked fun movie. Hatchet is one of the best and most consistent franchises out there, and Hatchet 3 to me is the best in the franchise. It's just such a fun ride and such a fun movie to watch and such a fun movie to talk about too. It's easily the best in the franchise for me, and it comes in at number 10.
Number 10 for me is going to be Jeepers Creepers 2. I really enjoy the first Jeepers Creepers, and I seen it way back when it first came out. And I love the sequel even more than the original. Able to really dig more into the creeper, see the creeper do more, kill more, and really leave us with the whole franchise at a state where in the current timeline, Jeepers Creepers 2 is currently where the Creeper is still at, and I thought the second Jeepers Creepers was absolutely phenomenal in tone, in kills, pacing, really fun movie. Really preferred it even over the original, so that's why it's number 10 to kick off my list.
Coming in at number 10 is Saw 2. In my opinion, it's better than the first film. It's a Child's Play 2 kind of thing. It improves on the original. It adds more, like, backstory for the characters. The traps are amazing in this film, and we get one of the best, most beloved characters in the series, Amanda. So I mean, like, that's epic. We get the classic Tobin Bell performance in this. By the way, love Tobin Bell. Also, if you guys can see over there, I got Morgan Freeman. Both old guys, amazing people. That's number 10.
Coming in at number 9 for me is one that's kind of out of nowhere because it's one that I don't think I've ever talked about over on my channel. That's going to be Creepshow 2. Creepshow 2, I've tried before. I cannot decide whether I prefer the original Creepshow or Creepshow 2. Because the original Creepshow, of course, you had those 5 awesome stories. And then Creepshow 2, you only have 3, but they might be even better. You start off with Old Chief Woodenhead, which I think is probably my favorite short out of all 3 Creepshows. I haven't seen the third one, and I don't plan on it. But yeah, that's just a great one. Then you get The Raft, which is another wicked creative one that's I think is adapted from a Stephen King short story. It's another one that's really fun and really creative. It wouldn't work as a full movie, The Raft, but as a short in Creepshow 2, it's perfect. And the last one I feel like is probably the most forgettable, but it's still really good. Of course, that's The Hitchhiker, and that's the one where Stephen King comes in. So I mean, it's got Stephen King. And obviously, he was Geordi in the first one, which is the best one in the first. It's just such a fun ride, Creepshow 2.
And the next one, number 9 for me, is going to be The Strangers Prey at Night. If you guys have seen some of my other collabs, you know I'm a big fan of The Strangers film, but I am even possibly a bigger fan of the sequel, Prey at Night. It is much different in terms of tone to the original. It's not a straight-up home invasion horror thriller. It is very much more so a slasher, faster-paced to the original, but also has some amazing kills, some really good tension, and some really just, oh man, like, you know, some just great moments that will definitely have you jumping out of your seat and really enjoying yourself. With, also you may have heard about the pool scene, that's what it's called, right? There's a whole scene and a sequence involving a pool and a killer and a person, and it has you on the edge of your seat and you're rooting and you're, come on. It's absolutely amazing. When you see it, you'll think, oh, the pool scene, and when you watch it, you're gonna know exactly why I highlighted that scene in particular. The Strangers Prey at Night is awesome and had to make my list.
Number 9 is Halloween 2018, and it blew me away because I watched the first Halloween the night before the movie, so I was right in that Halloween mood. It was really good. It was right around Halloween when we watched it in theaters, and it's one of my favorite experiences ever. It was so good. The characters were actually interesting, and Laurie Strode's performance was amazing, and Michael was amazing in that film. He was just no mercy.
And at number 8 is one that I saw in the theaters, and that is Halloween 2018. It's the best Halloween sequel. I think that Halloween 3 might be my favorite. I don't know if it's my favorite in the franchise. It might be my favorite in the franchise, but Halloween 3 I just don't really see as a sequel because it's not a sequel. It's its own movie, but it's in the same franchise as other ones, so I don't really see it as a sequel. If I did, then that would be higher, but Halloween 2018 is just so good. It's got the best kills in the franchise, the best Michael Myers in the franchise, the best mask, the best portrayal, some of the best characters in the franchise. Allison is a perfect final girl to carry this franchise forward, and Karen is just, I like how we kind of got emotionally attached to her as well, so like when she inevitably dies off and either Halloween ends or Halloween kills, it's just gonna feel that much more emotional. And Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, might be the best Laurie in the entire franchise. Halloween 2018 is just such an unpredictable, fun, and honestly kind of disgusting ride. Halloween isn't really known that much for its kills, but this one just completely forgets about all of that. Halloween 2018 deserves to be on this list.
Alright, here we are at number 8. Number 8 for me is going to be a movie I went to go see in the movie theater. I wasn't expecting a whole heck of a lot. I thought it was going to be good. I thought I was going to enjoy it. And I walked out a 10 times bigger fan of these films than I ever was before. And that is Halloween 2018. Halloween 2018 absolutely blew away all my expectations that I ever thought of. Everything from the score to the kills, to the pacing, to the characters. They got, the gentleman, I can't think of his name, that plays Michael Myers in that is phenomenal, and even had old school Michael Myers come in, Nick Castle, to do some of the movements, some of the shots in the film, which was super cool. And to see 3 generations of Strodes just kicking ass and watching Michael just be so relentless and such a grisly, bloody movie. I just loved it, top to bottom. I have 0 complaints about it. I left the theater absolutely adoring not only that movie, but the franchise way more than I ever have before. Halloween 2018.
Number 8. It pains me to put it this low, but it just had a little bit more faults than the other one, and that is Dr. Sleep. Let me tell you guys, this movie is so underrated. If you haven't seen it, go watch it right now. Ewan McGregor is amazing. Also, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, you know what I'm talking about? It's amazing. I mean, the performances of him and the little girl, it's a nice dynamic they got going on in the movie, and it's just a nice film to watch. And I do have a problem with the final act, but that's fine.
At number 7, yet another one that I saw in theaters, that is Dr. Sleep. It's so freaking good. It's the best thing they could have done to follow up on The Shining. Like, I don't think that there is any problems with this movie. People say that they have problems with the ending being a little bit too reference heavy, but The Shining is my favorite movie of all time. I mean, I'm a sucker for that nostalgia, and we haven't even seen the Overlook Hotel in 40 years, so are they just not going to go up to the hotel and just rehash a whole bunch of iconic scenes from the first one? Of course they're going to have to do that. It's such a good movie. It's so well made, and it honestly works as its own movie. It only helps to see The Shining and then Dr. Sleep. Just the performances and the writing, and it's just so good. And it's really underrated, I feel. I don't think enough people went to see it in theaters. Like, it really sucks that it bombed that way. And if you haven't seen it yet, absolutely check it out. It's so good, and it deserves to be seen, and it deserves to be on my list.
So, number 7 on my list, again, is not considered horror to a lot of people, but it was ranked in a horror list on Dread Central, a very big horror website that's been around for a long time. And though the character is rooted in comic books and Marvel, the first 2 films they are actually labeled as horror films. So I put it on the list because I love it so damn much. And that's Blade 2. You can see him right there. Blade 2 is my favorite Blade of all 3 films, even though I love them all so very much. Blade 2 just expanded on everything that made the first film great. They brought an even better villain for the second one, better special effects. They really amped up the whole vampire versus creature aspect. You had Norman Reedus in there, you had Ron Perlman in there, of course you had Wesley Snipes in there. Some great stuff. Chris Christopherson. The relationship between Blade and Whistler is one of my favorite things about all the Blade movies, and the second one was just perfect. Again, top to bottom, I love it so much, and it had to make my list. Just had to.
And number 7 is It Chapter 2. Now let me tell you, this might be the funniest, one of the most funniest horror movies I have ever seen. I watched it with my dad. Probably wasn't a good idea. I love watching movies with my dad. It improves the experience. sometimes it could be scary. It was not even close to as scary as the original, but it was hilarious. I mean, you got Bill Hader, which is my favorite character in the entire movie. But his performance in this movie was amazing. He cried, which I was not expecting out of Bill Hader, the guy from Saturday Night Live. Like, come on. It's Bill Hader.
And at number 6, alright, here we go. This, I feel like, is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but that's going to be Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, I've said before multiple times in the past that Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is my favorite of the series, but I recently rewatched Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and I think that takes the spot. It's easily the most fun and insane ride you're going to have in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It's the perfect balance between Freddy being scary and Freddy cracking jokes. Like, Jesse he's such a goofy, fun character that we follow throughout the entire movie, and Freddy is just at his best. This might be the best looking Freddy in the entire franchise. This might be Robert Englund's best Freddy in the entire franchise, and there are just so many iconic and standout and insane scenes. Of course, you got the pool scene at the end, where Freddy's just killing people at the pool and then just setting stuff on fire. And I know it completely disregards all the rules that were set up in the first one, but I mean, still, it deserves more recognition than it gets. A lot of people hate on this movie because it is so different than the first, and mainly so different from the rest of the franchise as well. But that's why I love it so much. Number 6 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge.
And coming in at number 6, get the tomatoes ready, light those torches, and grab your pitchforks because y'all are going to come at me. It's Jason X. I love Jason X so much. Jason X is honestly probably my favorite Jason film, aside from Freddy vs. Jason. I'm referencing everything I have in my background, ironically, but right there, I have a Jason X autographed 8x10 from Kane Hodder. Another story, another video. But Jason X, I love Jason X. I thought the story was great. How they reference back to other films that, this Jason was just so Jason Voorhees was so unexplainable because they tried to burn him, shoot him, blow him up, electrocute him, and he wouldn't die. So they actually ended up just freezing him until they could, either test on him or figure out what to do with him, and then he wakes up years and years and years and years and years into the future. I think that's a really cool concept. Granted, it was only made by Sean Cunningham to get Jason back on screens, to get him fresh in the minds for the release of Freddy vs. Jason, so maybe they didn't take this film as seriously as they could, but regardless, I loved it, so hey, it's perfect for me, and it's number 6.
Coming in at number 6 is Happy Death Day to You. And this is one of the most underrated or most hated sequels that I can think of. It wasn't that hated, it was just that I feel like it deserved way much more love, and I understand where they're coming from. They want it to be more like a slasher, not like the comedy that it was, but I love this film. Of course, Tree makes whatever the actor's name was, put it up on screen. It was amazing. She did an amazing performance with a new theme. The last one had a theme about you live in the moment, but make the best version of yourself. This one also had a great theme. I don't want to say it because James hasn't seen it, and also I don't know if Mike has seen it. Please go watch it. It's an amazing sequel. Definitely go check it out.
And at number 5 is Army of Darkness, easily the best movie in the Evil Dead franchise. And the original Evil Dead is a classic, but Army of Darkness, it's just an absolute blast the entire way through. It kind of retcons the ending of Evil Dead 2 with Ash shooting that dragon out of midair, because instead of there being a dragon and him being a hero, he has to kind of like solidify himself as a hero throughout the movie. And it's just so good. There's so many memorable bits in this. Whether it's him trying to get that book so he can go back and then just like completely messing up the words and summoning this stop motion skeleton army who are just, oh my god, it's just such a fun ride. If you haven't seen it, I don't really think you need to see, well, all the Evil Dead movies, I feel like you don't have to see any of the other ones to make sense of it, except for Evil Dead 2, but I mean, not because it's a sequel to the first, because that movie just doesn't make sense anyways, but Army of Darkness, it's just its own movie, and it's an absolute blast from the beginning to the end. Ash is just like full-on action hero, delivering so many iconic and quotable lines. Army of Darkness is just a classic in my opinion, and it comes in at number 5.
Now we're cracking into the top 5. And my top 5 is a franchise I'm a huge fan of. If you guys watch any videos on my channel, I talk about these movies a lot, and that is Tremors. I love Tremors, and I knew Tremors was going to make the list. I just wasn't sure which one to pick. So I had to boil it down to, which one felt the most like a sequel done right. But again, my personal favorite, because everybody, it's all opinionated, right? I'm gonna go with Tremors 6, A Cold Day in Hell. I love this one. It was so much fun. I watched it recently again, rewatched it recently again on Netflix. I had so much fun with it that honestly, I'm ready to watch it again. It was action-packed. It was gripping. It was fun. Burt Gummer had some of the best lines he's ever had. It was making me laugh, but also had me on the edge of my seat, worried about Burt and everything, and Jamie Kennedy being in there. I just absolutely loved it. Tremors 6 is one of my favorites in the franchise, and Tremors had to make my list. It simply had to. So I picked A Cold Day in Hell.
Coming in at number 5 is Red Dragon, the sequel, it's the prequel to Silence of the Lambs. It's pretty good. Yep. I don't want to say much about it because if I literally say any facts about it, it kind of spoils the entire movie. But it's just another case, kind of like Silence of the Lambs. But in my opinion, I like this one more. I don't like the movie more, but I like the plot more, not the movie. You guys know to pick it up, so you can go watch the movie. Yeah.
And at number 4 is my favorite of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. This has definitely the best Sawyer family in the franchise. I don't think it has the best Leatherface. I think that might be the remake, but it's got one of the best Leatherfaces, definitely. And it's just got so many funny and standout lines. I've noticed a theme on this list that most of these are on there for fun. But that's kind of the type of sequels that I like. The sequels that acknowledge the first one, but do something different and do something fun, like, for the time. Because the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in '74, when horror was much more at, like, a serious tone. And then Texas Chainsaw 2 came out in, I believe, 1982, although I could be wrong, when horror was just, at that point, just goofy, balls-to-the-wall crazy, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is just one of the best horror movies in the 80s, let alone Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. It's just such a fun, funny sequel, so many amazing lines and amazing kills in this movie. It deserves this high of a placement on my list.
Alright, here we are at number 4. Number 4 is a movie I talk about all the time. It needs no introduction. It's Child's Play 2. Again, in my personal opinion, one of the best horror sequels ever made. And Child's Play 2 just, I feel like, made all the right decisions. Of course, the whole factory sequence, the whole dynamic and bond between Kyle and Andy, I thought was great. The continuing the story of Andy Barclay, of course, keeping Alex Vincent as the same child actor was really good. And as a sequel, it really, really lived up to what it needed to be, and is a very, very popular choice for all horror sequel lists on YouTube or in people's minds or whatever. It's definitely had to make my list. Child's Play 2 is absolutely amazing, and I love it so very much, and it had to make my top 4.
At number 4 is a movie that's in my top 10 movies of all time, I think. Maybe not. I don't know. It's Army of Darkness. It's the best Evil Dead movie. It's my Ash J. Williams. Love this movie. And it led into us getting Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is my favorite horror TV show of all time. It's not scary. It's just amazing. Haven't seen it, James? Go watch it. It's amazing. Oh my god. Ash vs. Evil Dead. Oh, forgot. We're talking about Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness is amazing. We got the skeletons. We got probably the most slapstick movie of them all. And also some of the best gore. Also, we didn't get freaking Chainsaw Han a lot, but...
And at number 3 is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. The New Blood is my favorite of the Friday the 13th movies because it does something different while also keeping the same type of qualities that were set up in the first 6 movies. Like, it's still at Crystal Lake, although I don't think it's specifically Crystal Lake, but it's still like on a lake. So I mean, I guess it's basically the same. But you have the best looking Jason. You have, in my opinion, the best final girl in the franchise. This girl with telekinesis, and she's just like destroying Jason. This is Kane Hodder's first appearance as Jason, and it's easily the best looking Jason. And he just takes so much punishment in this. And I do think the ending is a little bit ridiculous when her dead dad like comes out of the dock and like pulls him down. That was a bit like weird and kind of out of nowhere. But I just like the progression of this movie. I think it probably has some of the best characters in the franchise. It's just a wonderful movie, and just yet again another just really fun watch for me.
All right, number 3. Number 3 is going to be, again, one of the greatest horror sequels ever made. Actually, scratch that. One of the greatest sequels ever made, period, and it's Aliens. Aliens is very different in terms of tone and everything to the first one. It's not the slow burn. It's not just the one creature on the spaceship and, you know, they're trying to figure out what it is and contain it or kill it. This one was action-packed, balls to the wall, xenomorphs everywhere, Marines, smart gunners, Hicks, Newt. It's amazing, and it blossomed one of the greatest and most badass final girls of all time with Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of Ripley is one of the badass and greatest of all time. It's an iconic film. If you have not seen Aliens, watch the first one, watch the second one. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna think back to this video and be like, son of a gun, he was right. That movie was amazing. I loved it. Aliens, James Cameron nailed it. Aliens, it's damn near perfect.
Coming in number 3 is Friday the 13th 4. Friday 4 is the best one. We got, oh my god, I can't remember his name. Corey Feldman plays him. Little boy. I say Andy Barclay, no it's not. Oh my god. Well, you guys know what I'm talking about. He's amazing. He kills Freddy. God dang it. He kills Jason. Okay? It's the best Jason movie. We get Crispin Glover doing his famous dance. It's a really good film. If you guys haven't seen it, it's probably one of the best slashers of all time. We get freaking Nick Castle playing Jason. So, I mean, like, why haven't you seen the movie, huh? Huh?
And at number 2, maybe my favorite Child's Play movie, maybe my second favorite Child's Play movie. I can't really decide between those two. But it's going to be Bride of Chucky, the 4th installment in the franchise, because it does something so different, and it just completely changes the franchise for the better. The first 3 Child's Play movies are basically the same. I feel like Part 3 is a little bit different than the first 2, but they're basically the same. It's just Chucky going after Andy, and then Andy just kind of killing him in the end with the help of a girl. And the first one, it was his mom, and the second one was Kyle, and the third one was De Silva. This one, there's one mention of Andy, and I don't even think they mentioned him by name. He's just like in a newspaper clipping. But straight off the bat in this movie, when you have Tiffany's introduction, you know it's just going to be an absolute blast. And it sets the franchise up in a way where there's so many new possibilities. And those new possibilities, they really, I feel like, capitalized on in the later sequels like Cult and Curse of Chucky. Seed of Chucky, not so much. That's just my opinion. I know both Gibby and Mike are defenders of that, and I understand. I am kind of coming around to it, but I mean, this entry is focusing on Bride of Chucky, because Bride of Chucky, in my opinion, is the second best movie in the Child's Play franchise.
And at number 2, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Dream Warriors was one of my favorite Freddy films, aside from the original and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It is one of my favorite Freddy movies because the decision to bring back Nancy was absolutely perfect. The characters were great. It had really good storytelling. It had classic lines from Freddy. Robert Englund was really owning the role as Freddy Krueger. And it's definitely a fan favorite, and it's not hard to see why because of how damn good it is. It's just simply good, and it's great. Seeing them come together was absolutely amazing. And of course, they kind of crapped the bed in the one that came after it, but we're not talking about that. We're just talking about Dream Warriors and how amazing it is and why it's number 2 on my list.
The number 2 spot is Nightmare on Elm Street 3. It is probably one of the best horror sequels of all time. That's why it's number 2. I haven't seen all the horror sequels, but it's probably one of the best. But Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is my by far, but I'm not another league. I'm not above the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I know number 1's pretty good too, but number 3 is by far my favorite. Best Freddy, it's a mix between the horror and the funny Freddy, which some of the sequels, they ruined that, but I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is it's amazing. We get, the characters are by far my favorite. Can't remember their names, but I love the characters. They will come to me later, but Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is amazing.
But in at number 1 is going to be The Bride of Frankenstein. It's just so good. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's been out since 1936. It took all of the great aspects of the first Frankenstein and honestly just improved on it in just such a nice way that acknowledges the first one and then does something that's different but not so different that you don't recognize it. Like Bride of Chucky is so different from the last installments. It could basically just be its own movie, but Bride of Frankenstein just has that perfect balance and it adds so much new stuff. I love the character of the blind man. I love how Frankenstein's monster can talk in this film. Colin Clive returns, unfortunately for the last time, as Henry Frankenstein, and he just has such an awesome and great performance, maybe better than the first one. Bride of Frankenstein is just so good. Many people prefer it to the original Frankenstein. I'm not sure. I might prefer it to the original Frankenstein. I might not. That's something that I've never really thought about, but Bride of Frankenstein is just so good, and I think it might have the best sequel explanation in horror. You know, in horror movies where it's like, well, he died in the last one, so how is he back? In this one, they're just like, well, he burned, but he just lived right through it. That's just the best way you can have a killer come back. Just say he lived right through it, and it makes sense for Frankenstein's monster's character, and it's just such a perfect movie in my opinion. So at number 1 is going to be The Bride of Frankenstein.
Here we are at number 1. I've been pointing at things in the background this whole video for all my clips because, I don't know, I guess I tried to put all my favorites in the back. But regardless, if you can see him peeking his little head out down there, we're going to now mention Saw. Saw 2, in fact. I love all the Saw movies except from Jigsaw. We'll talk about that later. But I had to pick one, and Saw 2 was the one I wanted to pick. Saw 2 was everything that was great about the first one, plus. It extended the story, extended the mythology, extended John Kramer, gave you a little bit more, one more piece to the puzzle, and then the next one, another piece. And I thought the acting was just great. Absolutely phenomenal. The classic Saw, the twist endings, things I never saw coming. I was like, whoa, it just blew my mind. It was so crazy and so much fun to watch it just all unravel. And having Wahlberg, opposite Tobin Bell, and just watching those two interact was just absolutely perfect to me. And Saw 2 is one of the best in the franchise and had to be number 1 for me. It just has to be. It's absolutely perfect. I love it so much. I love Saw. I love the franchise. And I love Saw 2, and it's number 1 on my horror sequels.
I'm number 4. But, no doubt, Child's Play 2. No doubt. Child's Play 2 is the actual best, one of the best horror films of all time, guys. Best slashers of all time. It's definitely the best Chucky movie. Right below that's Bride of Chucky. But I mean, Child's Play 2 is, oh my god, such a good freaking film. They wouldn't let me put Bride of Chucky on here. would have been way higher up on this list. Child's Play 2 is a freaking masterpiece of a film. One of the best slashers, got one of the best kills, one of the most interesting characters except to adopt. The mom was okay, but the dad, Child's Play 2 is freaking amazing. Best Chucky. Has some of the best one-liners, but the best one-liners in Child's Play 3, I gotta give that to you, James. But I freaking love this film. We got Mrs. Kettlewell scene, and it's amazing. This is the best Child's Play film, and the best sequel of all time.
Thanks for watching our video on the top 10, or top 30, I guess, horror sequels of all time. This is one that I've actually been planning for a really long time, since honestly before I've met Mike and Gibby, I wanted to do this, but as soon as I met them both, I was like, we gotta do this together. And we did. So that's just something that's pretty nice. So what do you think about all of our lists? Let me know your list in the comments down below of the top 10 best horror sequels of all time. My list, it's not the right list, it's just mine. So, yeah, try not to hate on me for putting Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 instead of Part 3, or Friday the 13th Part 7 instead of Part 4, or something like that. Just give me your list in the comments below. Those are some of my favorite comments that I get. You can follow me on Instagram at JamesFromWannaPlay, and we have a Discord now. It's called the Overlook Hotel. I might put a link down there in the description, so you can check that out if you want. So thank you for watching, goodbye, and good night. Bang!